Okay, thank you so much for joining the American Indian and Alaska Native Tourism Association webinar series, Business of Art. Today's Business of Art is being made possible with a grant from the National Endowment for the Arts. This is part of a new initiative to promote arts in Native communities. My name is Melanie Laborwit, and I am IANTA's Native Art and Culture Coordinator. I have worked for many years with museums and the public sector, celebrating regional traditional heritage and culture, and it is an exciting time to join IANTA as we all work to empower Native American artists, develop markets, and elevate awareness of the role that Native American arts play in cultural tourism as well as in historic preservation. In today's webinar, attendees will learn more about one community's response to meeting the needs of artists in a rural setting. Great Basin Native Artists has been thriving for 8 years as a collective of Native artists from tribes from Nevada, California, Southern Oregon, Southern Idaho, and Utah, and work represented in their program is as diverse as their membership. Since they began from a small group of artists whose work was featured in a Nevada Art Museum show, they have established a regional archive and online artist directory, developed opportunities for member exhibitions, collaborated with other regional organizations and communities to create art business workshops, and created new platforms for Native artists to connect with one another and help rural artists create an online presence. For those of you who are not familiar with IANTA, for nearly 2 decades, IANTA has served as the national voice for American Indians, nations, and Native Hawaiians engaged in cultural tourism. In addition to serving as a voice for Indian country tourism, IANTA provides technical assistance and training for tribal nations and Native-owned enterprises engaged in cultural tourism, hospitality, and recreation. IANTA's mission is to define, introduce, grow, and sustain American Indian, Alaska Native, and Native Hawaiian tourism that honors traditions and values. Please save the date for IANTA's 24th Annual American Indian Tourism Conference, October 24th through 27th this year at Harrah's Resort, Southern California, hosted by the Rincon Tribe. Registration is now open and sponsorship opportunities are available. Visit our website at ianta.org to learn more about our education program offerings. At this time, I am really pleased to introduce you to our presenters. First, Melissa Malero Moose, founder and curator of the art collective, the Great Basin Native Artists, and a mixed media visual artist in her own right, as well as curator. She is Northern Paiute, enrolled with the Fallon Paiute Shoshone tribe, and lives with her family in Hungry Valley, California, Nevada. Melissa holds a Bachelor of Fine Arts from the Institute of American Indian Arts in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and a Bachelor of Science from Portland State University in Oregon. She exhibits her art regionally and nationally and has won numerous awards and acknowledgement for her work. She has received artist fellowship and grants from the Joan Mitchell Foundation, the Nevada Art Museum of Art, and the School for Advanced Research, Indian Art Research Center, the Southwest Association of Indian Arts, the Wheelwright Museum, and the Institute of American Indian Arts. She's currently working on a Great Basin Native Art Archive project permanently housed at the Nevada Art Museum of Reno, Nevada. Melissa, thank you so much for joining us. Following Melissa, we will hear from Sigrid Benson, who is Exhibits and Collections Director with the Shingle Springs Miwok Tribe, and she will be reflecting on the growth of Great Basin Native artists and its impact on local communities, and how it supported initiatives for cultural resource preservation and growth. She recently served as part of the Crocker Art Museum Native American Advisory Committee in preparation for 2 independent exhibitions, which opened late in 2019, and participated in programming for When I Remember I See Red, American Indian Art and Activism in California project. Thanks, Sigrid, for joining us. Okay, Melissa, we will be sharing your presentation now, and let us know when to move on to the next image. Also, if any viewers have any questions or comments, please put them in the chat or the question and answer section, and we will address those at the closing of the program. So I think we're all set, and we're going to move into the program. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to hearing from you all. There will be a couple questions as we go along, and it would be really helpful for you to answer those. Could we have the first question, Sherry, for IANTA before we get started? Well, okay, we're just getting that set up, and there we go.
You can read it.
So the first question, are you a member of IANTA? And that's just a quick yes or no question. That'll help us find out more about who we all are here. And how did you learn about our webinar? And this is just a quick multiple choice that helps us find out about how you find us. So we look forward to hearing from you, and we're going to end this in just a moment. Yes, sir. Okay, we're going to end the poll now. Thank you so much. And we're going to move on to the program. We're going to share those results. So thank you all for those who are members and those who are not members. When we finish this, take a look at our website, and it's easy to sign up and learn more about IANTA and how you can affiliate with us. And we hope to hear from you again and follow our webinars. And we're going to go on to the program. So thank you so much, Melissa. It's all yours.
All right. Thank you, Melanie. I am really honored to be here. I'm so happy about being able to tell you all about the Great Basin Native artists and our sort of origin story. Let's go to the next slide. That's me. My name is Melissa Molero Moose. Fallon Paiute Shoshone tribe. We're the Doitaketa, we're the cattail leaders out of Fallon. I live Fallon, Nevada. I reside on the Reno-Sparks Indian Colony in Reno, Nevada. I'm a mixed media visual artist. Among other things, I wear a lot of hats these days. One of them is founder of the Great Basin Native Artists and curator at the Great Basin Native Artists Gallery that we have at the Stewart Indian School Cultural Center and Museum, and that's in Carson City, Nevada. So thank you so much for joining us. Oh, could I get the next slide? So this is the Great Basin. It's a rendition of the Great Basin. Most of the tribes that we do service are closer to Reno in the Reno area, just because of travel and economics and different things. But we have really tried to branch out over the different, over the years and over the different projects and things that we've been doing. So one thing, if anybody's listening, one thing we've been really trying to get over to Utah and find some artists to add to our list, our artist directory, and also get them documented. And I've been working with different places in Utah to sort of get that off the ground. But if anybody can help, that would be amazing. Next slide, please. Oh, another thing with Great Basin, I think that really sort of branched off from, because we have so many different tribes in that area. We have 32 different communities, but we are also mostly made up of Paiute, Washoe, Shoshone, and Southern Paiute. And so a lot of the work that we have been doing is outreach, and why we've called it the Great Basin is for the Eastern Sierra of California. And there's just so many tribes in California. We just keep on branching out more and more. So, you know, who we are and what we do, we founded, or we both mostly got together in 2014. I think when we started to talk about who and what we wanted to do with this group, we had a mix of professional and emerging artists. So it's professional and emerging. I mean, anywhere from craftspeople to exhibiting artists and international artists, and residing in or originally from the Great Basin, which doesn't leave out urban native artists that are in the area, and especially artists that have been around for a long time and sort of producing a lot of art that is from the area, which is really great. I think another thing that we talked about in this mission statement, I created it early on, I think even before the first meeting or after the first meeting, and it really hasn't changed in the last 8 years. I mean, the mission is the same, even though a lot of what we do has evolved a lot over the years. So, I mean, the one thing we all wanted to do was exhibit. We wanted to have reasons to create. So creating our own exhibiting opportunities for our group shows, mostly regionally, but we have branched out nationally. And we are considered an underrepresented region. People don't know where the Great Basin is. Often when I've exhibited in different places in different states, that's why I bring my Great Basin map with me everywhere. And it's great for people to not only learn where the Great Basin is, but realize that they're not really hearing much from our area. And that's what we want to change. That's what we want to show them. We have a lot of artists in our area, and we want to find our artists, and we want to spotlight them. So another thing that has been really hard for a lot of our area, our artists, because we're rural, is trying to find, areas that we can really gain relationships with and get our work out there. So one of the top things that we wanted to do was have this online presence, a gallery online, just like our website in the picture right here, and then do different exhibitions anywhere from, I mean, when we first started out, we were just really doing, powwows and things like that. But obviously, what our goals were to get into to have funding for our exhibitions. And so in order to do that, we realized we really needed some art business workshops for ourselves. And so, we were getting people to come in and teach us, photographing our work, documenting our work, getting our work online, social media, education, and just teaching each other just by being around each other. That was really, really helpful. And having these, regular get-togethers, these regular meetings. Another thing that I thought was really, really important was just to have some sort of presence for us to be available to the community. A lot of times our tribal websites don't really have links or a way for community, tribal and non-tribal, to get a hold of our artists or to find our arts in the community. So I thought that was one of the top things that needed to get worked on, and keep that communication open. And 8 years later, it's still one of the things that I'm really trying to communicate with different tribal entities. All right, next slide. So I wanted to give a little background on how, I guess, we got started. I mean, I could go back all the way to, and I started work in high school and artwork. And I think the Nevada State Museum, we had a show there in 2001, and that is where I met, or I knew of the artist Ben Alec, and me and him were asked to co-curate numerous art exhibits in association with the Under One Sky exhibit that is at the Nevada State Museum in Carson City. This was a boarding school, educational boarding school exhibition focused on the Stewart Indian School located in Carson City as well. So we put a couple of committees together and tried to get like a group of artists, and then we did some group shows and some solo shows from that. And that was really, I think, the jumping off point for our artists meeting each other. The gatherings that we had from these exhibits were just invaluable. And I mean, none of this really would have happened, all these years of work and art and community wouldn't have happened if it weren't for this one show. So I think it's really important to bring it up because, you know, if you're a community that has an opportunity to have this one show, it will be so important for the future of your artists and your community and your cultural community. I think the next thing that was super important was the art collective in Santa Fe. I was exhibiting really few and far between when I was living in Santa Fe. I was going to school at the Institute of American Indian Arts, but I was also, you know, interacting with different artists that kind of felt the same way as I did. IAI alumni and different regional artists that weren't really given the opportunity to exhibit on a regular basis. And so America Meredith, with the First American Art magazine, she really opened up her studio, and she and we all started to sort of learn how to curate and learn how to just put off our own exhibits and really, you know, find these opportunities for ourselves. And I think that really, it really, you know, stirred something inside of me that, and taught me that, you know, we can do this for ourselves. And when I moved back home to Reno, Nevada in 2012, I've sort of brought that with me, and I missed that, you know, that sense of artist interaction and just being able to exhibit on a regular basis. And that gave me a reason, and everybody else, all the other artists, a reason to create on a regular basis. And so all of this art was getting out there. So the next thing that happened, I think that was really pivotal was in 2012, the Nevada Museum of Art had a group exhibit called The Way We Live. And this group exhibition included artists from the Great Basin and the Eastern Sierra in California. And I really like that because our artwork and traditional works, you know, are very similar for Nevada and a lot of California, northern, central, southern. And so it made sense not to have those state lines sort of get in the way of all the artists and the outreach that we wanted to do with all of these artists. I really think shows like this, you know, ended up being a stepping stone for everything that, you know, we're doing today. And this is how the community, you know, meets the artists. This is how the artists meet each other. And this is how you grow a cultural community. I mean, if it weren't for, you know, those previous shows, we wouldn't have found each other, and we wouldn't have, you know, had these opportunities to exhibit our art and to realize how important it was in the community. I think the next step is understanding your regional artists or your arts and artists. When you're out there and I was looking for artists, and I was trying to find, and this is after we started the group and after 2014, you go out to the community and you start to kind of have an opportunity to define yourselves and not be defined by, the local regional arts that was sort of ignoring us. We kind of had to just ignore that, go out and define who we were and what we wanted and what we wanted to exhibit and tell our own story. And I think we were doing all of this with the ultimate goal of exhibiting our art and creating our own art history, getting our pieces documented, getting our pieces just acknowledged in our history period. So let me see. Going on to creating our own opportunities. I think in order to create your own art history, we need to document our own artists, make sure that our artists are being supported and given the opportunities to be artists in our community. Most artists in our community, I think when we first started out, we were, meeting them at craft fairs and powwows. And, we were telling, basket makers or beadwork artists that, we want to exhibit in museums, and we wanted to write articles about them. And, they didn't really consider themselves as quote unquote artists. And they thought of themselves not being able to take their art to that next level. And for me, I think that taking it to the next level equals so many different things and so many really, really important things. And exhibiting, equals education, and that equals, getting publications out there. And again, I say documenting our work. It's so important that, our youth get to read about us, and our youth have something to associate with and something to aspire and have these goals set for themselves. And so I'll go over to working with the community. Next slide. So working with the community, how we got started. When we decided to become a group, we had, our first meeting, and we all, realized, yes, this is a thing that we want to, do together. This is our similar goal. And I remember that first meeting. It was a really good time. We had a really amazing time, just being together. Food and talking art, and talking about our few past art shows that we were involved with, and what we wanted to do for the future. But nobody could decide on a name. Nobody could decide on how we were going to move forward, what we were going to do next. So that was very difficult to try and get a bunch of people to make single decisions. And I remember thinking, okay, well, we just need a website. And I kind of knew how to put a website together, and I kind of knew how to make my own business cards. And so I was like, okay, we're just gonna call it this, and we're going to have a website, and we're going to have business cards, and sort of fake it till we make it. That's my motto. And, that's sort of what, that really did get the ball rolling. It was like, okay, we have these business cards, we're passing them out to all these people, and we need, when they start contacting us, we need to be ready for what the next thing was. And so right away, we decided we needed to find a place to exhibit. And hopefully at the time, everything would just fall into place after that. And it did. It really did. Just having our first exhibit, which was, I believe, at the Pyramid Lake Museum Cultural Center in outside of Reno, Nevada. I mean, that was, you know, we got all the people together, we got the community together, we got our artists together, and we got our name out, and, you know, people were like signing up on our mailing list, and that was, you know, that was the beginning of everything. After that, we started to do the pictures that are up here are like, I think we're at a health fair. I used to do Indian market in Santa Fe and the herd. So I had those artist panels, and we put up all of our different artists' artwork up, and we made a little banner and put our little table out, and there's our little mailing list sign up sheet in our portfolio. And, you know, we just had a great time talking to the community and doing outreach and finding out, you know, what our artists were in need of, and, you know, who wanted to be involved, and just let the community know that, you know, how important everything, you know, with art and our culture, and just, you know, supporting our artists, how important that was. Another one of the pictures down there is when we first started to work with the Mighty Museum. I think, you know, that was a really important shift for our group as well. And we'll get a chance to talk to Sigrid Benson pretty soon, who used to work at the Mighty Museum and really was so supportive of everything that we did. And that is very, very important. Next slide. So I wanted to include just, I guess, the different things that are so, why I'm saying everything is so important. I think people, you know, who aren't interested in art, when I'm talking to tribal leaders, I can kind of see their eyes glaze over sometimes, especially if art isn't their thing. And I totally get it. So I'm trying to, you know, come at it in a different direction where, you know, who isn't for education and community education and youth, you know, gaining skills. And I think this is the part, you know, the community education that really needs underlining, because this is where art, whether you're interested or not, isn't the question. It's the tribal, the tribal communities that benefit not only financially, but culturally through language and traditions, youth involvement in opportunities, and you know, youth involvement that equals less troubled youth, equals less, you know, equals more youth having opportunities, and you know, youth eventually becoming leaders, and you know, my tribe supporting me and giving me these little opportunities, and helping me with my education, going to art school, you know, that helped me in everything that I'm doing. And I can't imagine where I would be without that help. So, I mean, that's where, you know, we can support our artists from the very beginning. And also through tribal and non-tribal people learning about arts and culture. This is educational, and it equals, you know, sort of success for the rest of all of our departments, and ultimately less racism in our communities when we have these outreach opportunities, whether it be exhibits, like we just had the Jean Lamar exhibit over at the Nevada Museum of Art in Reno, Nevada. And I mean, we had a lot of community come out, Native and non-Native, and, you know, for them to learn about her story and see her art, and to learn about Paiute people in our communities, that's really, really important. And it's not just about a painting, you know, it's about so much more. I think another thing that how we're benefiting our artists and our in our Indigenous communities is our artists gaining these skills to, become leaders and to become self-employed. They were giving them all of these skills and supporting them. And at this point, since there aren't very many, resources for artists, a group like this is, where the artists turn to, and they learn all of these amazing skills, like photographing and documenting their work and just sort of organizing their business to become successful. More opportunities created for artists lead to more communication with our art community and our tribal leaders. And that has led to so many amazing things for our group. Just putting ourselves out there as a group and exhibiting in different places led to our interactions with the Stewart Indian School Cultural Center. They asked me and another artist, Ben Alec, to be a part of their design team for the museum. And we worked with them for a whole year with the fabrication of the museum and different artistic design elements on the museum. But then we also got to contribute to all of the different content for the boarding school museum, and that's so important. So I think things like that, if we were involved with that, they eventually offered us a gallery space, and that's how we got our gallery space. I also have to go back a little bit and just sort of remind people that when we first got started and we're doing all of this, we had very little to no funding. So I think a lot of stuff that I'm doing, if you're thinking this is going to be cost this and cost that, I mean, why we were looking for places to exhibit was because those places, those venues would pay for it, So, I think that's a really, really important part. We're still not a nonprofit, so I'm not getting, nonprofit funds. I get funds from different places. Stewart pays me to curate the gallery, and First American Art Magazine pays me to write an article here and there. I sell my paintings here and there, and I put all that money back into the group, the website, and getting the business cards and anything that the artists and our buyers can contribute to, supporting our group. We're very thankful. So I think, next slide. So our evolving projects, a couple of years ago, I think 2018, I approached Nevada Museum of Art with an opportunity to document our artists. And I was thinking like a directory or something, because I had so much artist information that I was collecting on all of the artists that I knew and all of the shows that we were doing. And I just thought it was really important to be able to put them all in one place. And I wasn't able to, keep up the website to the point where, people could come on and really research our artists. So I asked if we could do some sort of archive, and it was an amazing opportunity I got to do with the Nevada Museum of Art with a fellowship that they provided me. And we created the archive project from there, and that is an ongoing project. Any Indigenous artists, Great Basin, from the area originally, or just living in the area, can contribute their artist information, slides and bio and resume and examples of work and shows or anything. And so that'll be in a place where, you know, people can access it, the community, and Native and non-Native. And another thing that, like I mentioned before, that we're working on is, you know, all of these continuing exhibitions with, you know, the Nevada Museum of Art, and upcoming shows that we have coming in different places. Right now, we're doing a community exhibit with Bishop, Owens Valley Cultural Center in Bishop, California, and we have like 50 plus pieces in that exhibit, and it's been up for 6 months, and we're so excited to be working with them. So I think, you know, that is the ultimate partnership, and the goals that we were accomplishing, trying to work with our artists and our tribal communities. And obviously our gallery is just a dream come true. It's been amazing to have, you know, a actual place to exhibit our art and be in charge of our own shows, and be a part of the Stewart Indian School Cultural Center and Museum. I'm hoping that for the future, we can, you know, really offer something more for our artists and support, like residencies and fellowships. And I'm assuming, you know, since we did open during COVID, that, you know, our future goals will be to get money to support our artists even more. One last thing I wanted to mention, our tribal partners, you know, the Bishop, the Owens Valley Cultural Center, that was a really, really important partnership with Great Basin Native artists. That exhibit, you can find more information on that, that art exhibit on our Great Basin Native Artists website. And I wanted to give a shout out to Reno Sparks Indian Colony and Reno, Nevada. That's where I live, in Hungry Valley. They have been supporting our artists by purchasing artwork from our regional artists for their collections, documenting elders with their oral history program, and creating publications, and working with local arts organizations like the Nevada Museum of Art for local Native art markets and cultural programming to go along with our solo exhibits and hopefully future group exhibits with this amazing museum. So thank you so much. Lastly, moving on to our conversation with Sigrid Benson, the Shingle Springs Rancheria Band of Miwok in Placerville, California. They have supported Indigenous artists by creating exhibition spaces, supported art publications, and purchased art from the community and regionally for their collections. This is amazing work because our arts are our history, and our arts are how we tell our stories. So thank you very much. And I look forward to talking with Sigrid about this right now.
Hi there, everyone. My name is Sigrid Benson, and I am honored to serve the Shingle Springs Band of Miwok Indians as the Director of Exhibits and Collections. I am a guest on these beautiful Nisenan homelands. I myself am an immigrant from Bewelche, occupied Mapuche lands. My background is that of a public historian who situates her work in the field of art and the gallery setting. I am also the former curator of the Indigenous Art Gallery at the Maiju Museum and Historic Site. But I'm speaking to you today from the perspective of founding director of Concept Art and Movement. CAM is a cultural and curatorial arts coalition centering Native artists of the Pacific Western region. And I'm here today to chat with Melissa and really underscore the theme of exchange that has, been a motif of our relationship and a really, really important thing to talk about as we talk about establishing the foundations for all of the work that Melissa's story exemplifies and all of the things to come. And so with that, we can move on to the first slide, where we'll just talk really briefly about how Melissa and I met. I had recently begun my tenure at the Maidu Museum and was putting together an exhibit that celebrated the history of a really pivotal space for California Native artists here in the Sacramento Valley region and foothills. While preparing for that exhibit, Melissa happened to stop in at the museum. She was, I believe, on her travels, checking out different cultural institutions, sites, galleries featuring Native art and artists, and she had found the museum online. And so she came to visit, and I took her upstairs to the gallery where we were installing this exhibit, which was predominantly photographs of artists, culture bearers, and elders that had exhibited and sold at this really important space over the 40 years of the gallery's existence. And as we walked, through the gallery and looked at all the photographs laid out being ready to hang, Melissa and her mother immediately identified folks from their area, tribal members, specifically, there was a portrait of Leslie George. And so we shared the excitement of connecting over that photograph, and the conversation really started there, and I don't think it's ended yet. That set the tone, I think, for the many projects to come. And so, Melissa, is there anything else you would like to add before we move on to the next slide, where we're going to feature the first exhibit that we collaborated on?
Just that I know we talked last night, we were trying to figure out how I ended up at the Maidu Museum, and I was on assignment for First American Art Magazine to do a review of the state capitol show. And when I got to I was photographing the works and sort of asking questions, but it was just a security guard in the Capitol in Sacramento. And they mentioned that the Maidu Museum, a lot of the artists were associated with the Maidu Museum. And I was like, well, what's the Maidu Museum? So it's such a neat, sort of strain of events that happened that if I wouldn't have gone to check out this show and then had enough time to stop at the Maidu Museum and really find out about the rest of these artists, and really had the means and ability to go on this little adventure, a lot of things wouldn't have happened from there. So I mean, it's get out into the community, find your artists, and follow those breadcrumbs.
Yeah, definitely. And this show was in 2014, and so if we move to the next slide, by May of 2015 we are collaborating on a show at the Maidu Museum. And so that was a show that Melissa put together and that the museum was really excited to receive and host. So that was Melissa's curatorial effort being traveled to the Maidu Museum. And that was really important because it connected us with so many artists from, that side of the Sierras. Those artists had a chance to network with the artists that we were working with. And so then, bringing those two groups together just created, an infinite amount of connections that, we can't even account for now as we look back onto this story. And so, that was a way for us to kind of test our working relationship, and we worked well together. And so we soon found ourselves talking about how to, deepen those connections, and do multiple layers of significant work with each show that we created. So the next show, fast forwarding to 2016, 1 year later, we can go on to the next slide.
I just want to chime in
Oh,
too. It was so important to have a place like this that opened its doors to our artists, but there were so many things available that made it such a great experience or interaction for our artists. One being the artist talk that you had every exhibit. And then, a artist reception. So we had these opportunities to interact with each other and interact with the community and interact with professionals, arts organizations and other places. And all of that led to so many other things. And so, a place like this, a cultural center, and obviously they had the funding for the party, they had the funding for the artist talk, and even some funding for, some of the artists. And that was above and beyond, what we were used to, and what, we, things that we wanted to look forward to and sort of ask of, our venues. And that was an amazing opportunity.
And, Melissa, I would just add to that, one of the really important things to remember, I think, about the work that we did in that span of years that we worked at the Indigenous Art Gallery, is that that space was very much articulated as a community space. It was a community gallery. And so that's important because it gave us the freedom to do what we wanted to do what we needed to do, and to do it in a way that was supportive and nurturing of first-time exhibiting artists. And
Right.
That is so important, because we already have institutions that are working at the highest level of what the perception of the fine art museum gallery is. But it's the journey to get there that folks need support with. And so there's so many incredible artists within the tribal communities that have not had the same opportunities or experience, not necessarily all going through art school, not necessarily having the supported, guided experiences of how to make it to that point, to getting your work into a gallery. And so this was a space where we could do that. And I really attribute the success of our work in that way to that freedom that we had. And so another example of the opportunities that gave us is, as we spoke more and more about access to collections, basketry, and things of that nature, we realized that one really important avenue for us was curating an exhibit that would allow the artists that you see listed here, Melissa, of course, and Shantae Parks, Maureen Self, Sarah Biscard-Dilly, and Dixie Rogers, to enter the collection of the State Museum Resource Center, and have the ability to just spend time as artists, not as researchers, as community members, spending time with the baskets, with ancestors in whatever way felt most comfortable for them. And this exhibit essentially allowed us to provide that experience and then ask the artist to reflect on it. It was an incredibly beautiful show. And I think it expressed very much the way we felt about the way our activities were really creating this, third thing unto itself, right? Stories are coming together, both for the individual artists, but also creating that feeling of unity and doing something together. And so I really also want to underscore how important our collaboration has been, because Melissa and I have spent a lot of time supporting each other in our curatorial capacities. And, I don't know that the story would have come out the same without that. And so when, I say the story, I'll soon move on to the development of the department here at Shingle Springs, but I want to make sure that you don't have any other thoughts to share.
No.
Interwoven.
Now let's fast forward to Intertwined, because that's awesome. Next slide.
Next slide.
Yay.
There it is. And so this is my last slide. This is the cover art for the catalog for Intertwined, Basketry and Beyond. And it's a great kind of metaphor for where we are right at this moment. At a certain point, the funding for the programs that we were doing at the Maidu Museum ended. And so we found ourselves, and when I say we, I mean just this broad group of artists who had been exhibiting at the Maidu Museum and, creating all this excitement, momentum, a lot of art sales as well. I don't want to, forget the importance of that. And we found ourselves again without a place to show. So we decided to continue our activity to find alternative spaces. And it's at that point that we named our group Concept Art and Movement. It's a grassroots network, much like Melissa's GBNA collective, that is project-based. And we showed in many community venues in the area. And during that time, I was contracted by Shingle Springs to develop the foundations for an exhibits department here at the tribe. Now, how did that happen? Well, it's a pretty direct lineage. We had started an internship program at the museum, and of course, we engaged with the tribes in our area constantly through the artists, right? And so Jackie Calancini, who is a tribal member here at Shingle Springs, she's currently a council member, and she is also now the tribal curator of collections for the department. She came to the museum as an intern because the tribe was interested in eventually having their own department, their own cultural center. And so they sent her to train with me. The program there ended. The tribe contracted me to begin the department, and eventually, within a short time, we had established the Exhibits and Collections Center here at the tribe with what we call the Lolman Gallery, which is situated in the Tribal Administration Building. And so what happens from there forward is, a story of its own, but what we did at the outset of the gallery development is think about, how were we going to nurture tribal members specifically here at Shingle Springs to enter into this world of sharing their artwork, which can be so intimate, it can be so intimidating, and it can also just be so incredibly beautiful and empowering. And so what we did was create this intertwined exhibit with Melissa that originally showed at Sierra Arts in Reno and then traveled here to the Lolman Gallery. And it was really an extension of the conversation that we'd begun with Interwoven. And it brought a group of artists who had already been through those initial processes of learning to work with the gallery system here to the tribe to engage with those artists here who are at the very beginning of that journey. And in that way, we created community. And the effects of that, you know, we're still enjoying to this day. And I'll wrap up kind of my part of this conversation by highlighting that we are so proud to have been able to add a publication program to our department and to do the work of creating exhibit catalogs for all of the exhibitions that we do, thereby documenting artists at all phases of their careers, whether they be beginning, emerging, youth, adult. They're all featured in these catalogs. And so we're providing a bibliography, we're creating portfolio material for them. You know, it's all very purposeful, concerted effort to give folks here in the regional tribal community, because we also extend our invitations to exhibit to our neighboring tribal communities, give them the opportunity to have that experience and then move into more public spheres with confidence. And so that's something that I have been really honored to do, and, you know, to work with you all these years, Melissa, as well. We couldn't have done it without you.
Yep. Same. Thank you. Thank you so much. I think we're ready to move on to our questions if it's not too late.
Before we start with our questions, we have a few of the poll questions that you had come up with, and we can just get those ready to launch right here. And I'm going to share a couple of questions right now. The first question, we're just setting up now. And we're putting out the first question, and we'll just give about 20, 30 seconds or so, a little bit more, for people to just type a yes or no, quick yes or no. And we just have a couple of questions here. So the first question is, does your tribal community support your Indigenous artists? Okay, we're going to end this question right now. And this, 67. So we can see that 67% said yes, and 30% said no. So this is something that we're continuing to evolve with. We're going to put on the next one. And the second question is, would you like to have a website or directory of tribal artists in your area? And that's pretty much 100% yes.
Wow.
Which is wonderful. And for the third question, do you think it is important to have publications for tribal artists? Give you guys a couple more seconds to answer, and I think we're going to end this one now. And it looks like 95% say that publications, yes, would be a great idea. We're going to go on to the next slide. For questions and answers. And we do have a couple of comments and questions that have been in the chat that I can share with you, Melissa. At the very beginning, one of our attendees commented that your artwork is a centerpiece of our living room in Albuquerque. We love it. So I thought that was really wonderful. I don't know if you saw that one. And for those artists who are in the webinar, we do invite you to join us as a vendor potentially for the 24th Annual American Indian Tourism Conference. And you can check that out at our website at www.ianta.org/AITC/exhibit@AITC. So that's going to be in California, October 24th to 27th. And someone asked about the recording, and yes, all registrants to this webinar will get a recording. And for those of you who might have colleagues who would have benefited from this recording as well, it will be posted to our website when it is available at www.ianta.org. So that's a really great question. And the other thing that Susan Anthony, thank you for attending, shared that for Native American artists who may be interested in protecting and promoting their collective name, the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office with the American Indian Arts and Crafts Board, which is the IACB, would welcome the opportunity to assist. So feel free to reach out to those agencies. Again, that's the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office and the Indian Arts and Crafts Board. We look forward to continuing to work with you. Are there any other questions? You guys can put it in the chat or in the Q&A. Well, we're going to move on to this last slide. And I just want to thank everybody for I want to thank you all for joining us for today's Business of Art webinar. This webinar has been recorded, will be emailed to all registrants. It will also be archived on our page if you have any friends who want to watch. And check out and look for future webinars as well. Don't forget, save the date for IANTA's 24th Annual American Indian Tourism Conference, October 24th to 27th. Of this year at Harrah's Resort, Southern California, hosted by the Rincon Tribe. And registration is now open. Sponsorship opportunities are available for individuals or tribal agencies or anyone. And visit our website at ianta.org to learn more. If you're not a member of IANTA and would like to be or like to learn more, please contact Gail Chihak, our Tribal Relations and Outreach Manager, and you can do so there also by visiting our website at ianta.org. We so appreciate you being here today. Thank you for joining us and have a great day and see you next time. Thank you.